Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me on the Godcast today is Mike McClean, who is known for his comedy, for his writing, for his TV presenting, a man of many skills. Manchester lad, Mike, it's brilliant to get you on the Godcast. How are you doing?
Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to be on, Alex.
Are you still Manchester-based, Mike, or has fame and fortune took you to Surrey Stockbelt? Or
Yeah, no, I left in I think 1995. I was doing the summer season in Scarborough, and I got a call from a channel called Nickelodeon, and I went down there, and it was only supposed to be for 3 months. It was initially a 3-month contract. I'd auditioned for them before, and I didn't get anything. And then the guy that was didn't like me had left, so he didn't like me because I was funny, and he wanted to be funny. So he sort of went, and then the producer said, "Look, we'll get you in," and they got me in. It was only for 3 months, so I was travelling between Scarborough. So I was doing my stand-up in the evening, getting up in the morning at 5:30, getting a 6 o'clock train from York into London, doing the telly, and then back to doing stand-up. So I did that for about 6 weeks before they said, "Look, we'll give you a contract."
I didn't realise you did the old summer season, Mike. Just tell us a bit about that. Who were you? Were you supporting, or were you headlining at that point? There.
No, definitely wasn't headlining. I was learning my trade. The first season I did was at a place called Wincup's Holiday Park in North Wales, and I did that. And on the bill there was Ken Dodd, and you did 2 slots. You did like a Wednesday and a Friday, and I used to die on my backside on a Wednesday and do okay on a Friday, but you were never allowed to go over a certain amount of time. 15 minutes, and that was it.
A bit different to Doddy then.
Yeah, there was a great joke, and I don't know who wrote it. It was a very good joke. They reckon that if he'd have got done for that tax evasion, he'd have got about 15 years, but knowing Doddy, he'd have done about 30.
That's a good gag.
A great gag. I don't know who came up with it. It was a very good gag. No, the summer season was just a learning. It was a brilliant learning curve. I don't know if they're around today. And back then, it was the way you sort of went on stage, and you had to host competitions, like the disco dancing competitions or the glamorous granny. So you did learn your trade. You learned your trade brilliant, how to handle people, how to be funny, and you're doing that. I think 6 nights a week. Yeah, 6 nights a week. So it was really, really hard.
What was the greater education, Mike? Doing the holiday camps or working with Ken Dodd?
Bit of both, really. He'd give you advice. I'd worked with a lot of comics and watched comics. There was a great guy called Chris Clayton who was an Elvis impersonator, and he was fantastic. The way he worked the stage, the way he got the audience going, he was just very good. And Doddy was good. He had the art of he always said he had his big arms open, and he just, like a shepherd, just herded them in. And when they were in, shut the gate and wouldn't let them out. It was just great to watch a master at work. Even bad comics. There were bad comics that come on and you learn. And, every Wednesday I was petrified at 7:30 going on. In fact, Wednesday I did 7:30 till 8. And I was just petrified because I was doing jokes at the time about my wife. And here I was at 20 or 21. No, I wasn't. So 18, 19. I'm doing jokes about my wife. I wasn't even married, And even down to the dinner suit, he said, "Don't wear a dinner suit." I was like, "What?" He said, "You don't wear a dinner suit. You're 18, 19. You wouldn't wear a dinner suit."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. It was just little things like that,
Were you always destined to be a comic, Mike? Were you like the class clown and stuff?
Well, I'd gone for Prime Minister of Great Britain, but apparently need qualifications. Yeah, I was. I went to St Albans RCI School in Gorton, and I just loved comedy. I loved watching with my dad. I loved my little lad's called Cooper, named after my favourite comedian, Tommy Cooper. And I just loved comedy. I loved, on radio. I think it was on Radio 1 on a Saturday. They used to have like a comedy bit. I used to record it and then write down all the gags and file the gags, and I'd watch every comic on the telly. And I like the science behind comedy that, and back then when I did comedy, I was quite aggressive. I was a real northern comic,
Yeah.
Until a director called John Spillers, who was a great panto director, said, "You need to slow down and be less aggressive."
Are you able to watch? I mean, I'm not a comic. I had a go at it, and it was all right, but not to the level that you're at. But Do you find it easy to sit a comedian and watch them for entertainment, Mike, or do you find that you're studying the craft of what they're doing most of the time?
No, I sit down and enjoy them. I love comedy. You know, even like I'm on the weekend with 2 or 3 other comics, and I'll sit down and I love watching them. I like watching new comics come through. You know, and I like watching bad comics. I particularly like watching bad comics because they're funny for the wrong reasons. You know, I always wanted to write a series called Bad Comics, and it was just literally a series of bad comedians because it'll just be brilliant. You know, but yeah, no, I do. I go away and I watch them and I enjoy them. I like all forms of entertainment. Even on the cruise ships now, I'll sit and watch. I may not watch the whole show, but I might think, all right, I'll give them 10 minutes and I enjoy them. And you know, I just come back from Hawaii with a great comic American guy called Mike Siegel. It was brilliant, really good. You know, I like the way he worked. He was very slow. You know, he was very engaging, you know, and he had some lovely throwaway lines, you know. And it's funny, really, because when you sit down with another comic, some will either give you notes or suggest stuff. Like I was on a ship with Tom Holland, Dominic Holland, which is Tom Holland's dad, you know, Spider-Man. And he said, "Do you like notes?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And he said, "Look, if you do this there, I'll say that there, I'll do that." He's still learning. You know, I remember John Pertwee in my first ever panto. He kept picking on me, and I thought he was picking on me. He was saying, "Do this, do this." And I was like, "He's getting on my nerves." And there's a great actor called Simon Gregson. I shared a dressing room with him. And I was like, "Oh, he's getting right on my nerves." He said, "Mike, have you noticed that John just gravitates towards you?" And I was like, "I don't know why." He said, "Because he likes you. He's giving you notes, you know, and he's giving nobody else notes."
Yeah.
And John Pertwee said, "Look, the only thing in life is free that is advice, and only an idiot wouldn't take advice, you know." And I probably learned more from those 6 weeks in my first ever panto with him than I did at any drama school.
Yeah. And do you feel like even if you've got a bit of a dry audience, Mike, your experience and your kind of skills just can pull an audience around? I was chatting to a comedian called Andy Kind. I don't know if you know him. A funny guy, and he's been a pro stand up for years, and he's never been on the telly. But he just said, "I feel like I've honed my craft, and you know, and if it's not going so well, I feel I can spin it round." You know, are you the same?
Yeah, you can. You know, you can either go one way with comedy, or they might not like it, and you think, "All right, okay, they like it clever." I don't do clever humor. I don't do political stuff. I certainly don't do religious stuff. It's just funny. That's what I do. But sometimes no matter what, there's a gig in near me at Southend, and I did it. And the first time I did it, I just died on my backside. Even now, you know. So I thought, right, I'm gonna go again. You know, so when the listing came up, I put my name forward, and I was like, you know what, I'll do that again. So I did it again, and it still wasn't, you know. And about 3 months ago, yeah, it was 3 months ago, I said, right, I'll put my name. It came up again, and I went, I'm going to do it again because I just had this thing to crack it. And I couldn't, you know. So sometimes I remember Jimmy Carr saying to me once, he did a gig once and he came off stage and he didn't do great. And he went, "It's not me, it's them." Just like that, you know. And he said, it's not me. My stuff's great. It's them. They're thick. So you can do it. Some places you can, like some other places you just, you know, you can't. You just, you know, it can be anything down to the weather. You know, if you do a gig at the end of the month, it's always great because they've just been paid. You know, it's really weird. There's so many little things that you've got to think about.
Yeah. And in terms of your stuff, Mike, is that always evolving? You know, is it? You know, I mean, I'm not going to say which comedian, but there's a comedian I do like, but I've seen him numerous times, and you know, quite often he'll draw out the old stuff. I think I'll wear this again. He's still funny, but you know, it's like, come on, I want something fresh now. How do you work it?
Yeah, you have your act. You have it's like an ingredient, isn't it? It's like baking a cake. You have the ingredients, but you can always add to that, you know. And comics always fall back on their safety net if it's not working. They go, "All right, I'll pull out." I always every day I'm on the dictaphone and I think of something and I'll put it in my phone and then I'll go away and like, you know, I just like they're all written down and then I have to sit down and then go through them, and then and I say to my girlfriend, like, I've got this gag, what do you think of this gag? Like even today I said it was yesterday, sorry, I was on the train with my son and found some lottery tickets. They'd been done, and the gag I came up with is like, so my brother's just won the lottery and bought a £1.5 million house. I don't know who's going to pay for it. He only got 3 numbers. And it's just stuff like that I put in front and go, right, that's the gag, and I keep. So then I'll use it, and I've got this thing where I try them out 3 or 4 times and see what the response is, And if it's good and it gets laughs, I keep it, and if it doesn't, I file it under B1N.
Got it. It took a minute.
I know. I gave you the minute. I could see the thought process going in the head.
I'm surprised it took me that. It was that quick, actually.
I know. It shocked me as well.
Now, listen, Mike. A lot of folk think, don't they, that if you've been on telly and you disappear, that's it, career over. There's a couple of things in there. Is I know your career's not over because I follow comics. It's my passion. But I was wondering what you thought about telly and comedy at the moment. There seems to be like a pool of comics, doesn't there, that they kind of are on a bit of a revolving wheel. I mean, I've nothing against Tom Allen, but he's on everything at the minute, and I'm sure his accountant's delighted. But there seems to be not much room for new guys and girls and established acts like yourself. Does that disappoint you in any way, or?
It's not that, Ali. I tell you what it is. It's lazy producing. These producers don't get off the backsides and go out in comedy clubs, and they won't go further than Watford to go and watch other comics. And what they'll do is, there's the comic mafia, there's the agency in London that have got all the big name comics, and they use them all the time. And then there's producers that just can't be bothered and just lazy and just go, right, let's get Tom Allen, or let's get Jimmy Carroll, let's get, because they're there and we can. And I have this really be in my bonnet because I work with I've been lucky. I've had a really good chunk of TV life. I've been very fortunate, bought a lovely house out of it, and I've had a great time out of it. And I still do the bit. I was on GMTV the other morning and still do little bits, and it's great. And I feel for those comics that haven't had it. I write with a great comic called Jerry Kay, who's my writing partner. That guy's brilliant. He's just funny. He writes for me, and we write together. And we gig together, and he's never had that bit on the tail, which I think he should have because he's funny. There's other comics that I've worked with that are funny, but they just don't get that little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't give that chance, that opportunity, So nowadays, the only opportunity now is Britain's Got Talent, and I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. If I'm really honest, it's a gamble, that, because it can either make or break your career.
Yeah, I did Britain's Got Talent, and we're comedy. We did a bit of comedy, but we were doing it for a laugh, But you did see some people, and I agree with you. Some people set their whole life on succeeding there or not succeeding, don't they? And they're kind of fly by nights, and you never see them again. And I think that's quite sad, but. Just in the whole, I think there's some good sitcoms knocking around, but in terms of comedy, I think it needs an injection of something else. But there we go.
We're also in a time now where comics have got to be careful what they say and what they do. And I just watched Ricky Gervais's new comedy because I worked with him on The Office, and I just thought it was brilliant. I just thought I loved the fact that he didn't care. He just went out and And I've watched some interviews of him about people going, "Oh, that's rude." He's like, "No, comedy's subjective, And
we've got. I agree, Mike. Obviously, I'm not obvious. Well, if you're watching it, it's obvious I'm a vicar, and the podcast is called The Godcast. But I do think that some people get really uptight about comedy, and I've never found comedy offensive, even if it's been kind of headlined, if easily offended, stay away. And I find that really difficult to, but I'm interested to know, Mike, how you set that in your work. Do you kind of have, look, this is what I do, and some people are going to like it, do you set a boundary for yourself or not?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Obviously there's certain subjects I don't touch and I don't approach because that's not my style, And then, I I did a gag, and I remember this woman coming to me saying, "Oh, I really enjoyed it, but I didn't quite like that gag. You should take it out." Now, normally you'd go, "Yeah, all right." And my mate was like, "Why did you give her the time of day?" And I said to her, "Look, there's 300 people in here tonight, and the only person that found that last gag offensive was you. So I'm not going to go to another gig, and if I take it out, then that gag isn't going to make 300 people laugh. So I've taken it out just to keep you happy. And so I'm not going to do that because I'm going to go with the odds of doing it again and making another 300 people happy." She goes, "Well, what happens if that one person doesn't like it?" I said, "Well, I'll give them your number and you two can get together and discuss it because I'm, just going to leave it in,
Yeah.
Listen, if you don't like horror movies, you don't watch a horror film.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
And these people, I just think nowadays, this generation are so quick to complain and I'm like, it's just, and I always say at the end, it's just a gag. It's just, nobody's died. It's just a gag.
No.
And if I offended anybody, I couldn't care less.
I don't know if you ever worked with Duncan Novell, Mike, but Duncan came on and he told me about a joke he'd written and he didn't know whether it was offensive, and it was that his local Chinese buffet does a 24-hour eat all you can buffet, and says the problem is they only give you one chopstick. And I think that's funny.
Yeah, great gag. Yeah,
it's not in any way offensive, but he was worried, and he's a guy who's been in the game for donkey's years, so it just shows you how difficult it is, doesn't it?
I just think do it, just do it. I remember doing a gig once, and Bobby Davro was said to me, why did you go soft on him? I was like, he said, "You should never change. Just do what you do, and just say what you say. And if they don't like it, they don't like it. And they go away. You get in your car, you still get paid, you go home." He said, "But don't ever change," because, and he was absolutely right. I'd say that to any comic nowadays. If they go, "Oh, is this offensive?" Just do it. And if they don't like it, they don't like it.
Yeah. Mike, just talking about the telly days and the big breakfast. I just Googled it this morning, and what pops up is you at the awards of the all these rock stars and all these kind of weirdos. I mean, you've interviewed some quite extraordinary people in your time, haven't you? Is there any who kind of left a mark on you and you thought, yeah, I like that guy, or or the complete opposite?
I did Ocean's 11 with Brad Pitt. It was all the cast of Ocean's 11, and every one of them was fantastic. And the ones I've always found, with the bigger the star, the nicer. I remember flirting with Julia Roberts in New York. He's just, and the only one I didn't quite was the late Dennis Waterman. He was in My Fair Lady, and we'd gone to London to interview him, and he was just so rude, And I let him have both barrels, because the beauty of coming from Manchester is you tell people exactly what you think, And back then, I just didn't care. I just thought, no. And I told him straight. I think he even made the papers or something. I think he tried to grab me. That was it. He tried to grab me. And bless Dale Winton, the late great Dale Winton, sort of stood in, and but he was really rude. And I just thought, they say never meet your heroes, and I was disappointed with Steve Coogan, because I'm a big Steve Coogan fan, and I'm sort of disappointed when I met him, But the big A-listers and everybody, they're all fantastic. They're all really nice. And I just had a cheeky way. I was never rude. I was just always cheeky.
You had a glint in your eye, Mike, didn't you? Yeah. You were great.
Yeah, I just pulled. I'd always smile at him as I sort of. I remember we used to do this gag at a premiere where whoever the first celebrity was, I'd go, "Congratulations, you're the first celebrity here tonight." And he'd go, "Thank you," and I go, "That's it." And that was it. And that was, that was a running gag that we did on the breakfast. And it got known, so much so that I was told that certain celebrities didn't want to go in unless they were like the second or the third in.
What was it like? Go on, Mike.
Wouldn't let me interview him.
Hey, say again.
Let me interview him.
Oh, right, okay.
Because his PR had seen what I'd done, and because I started to get a name, on the carpets and stuff like that. So he didn't want to be interviewed by me. So yeah, that was nice.
Yeah. And when the telly stuff dried up a bit, Mike, was that difficult for you? Was it from careers are often of troughs and peaks, aren't they? And did you just kind of battle on, or were you a bit demoralised? Or
listen, everything has a shelf life, and I'm no different to anybody else. You know, I lost all my hair. Went. It's funny, really, because as soon as my hair went, you know, and I went and I did 7 years with Richard and Judy. I worked on there. In fact, I only saw Richard the other morning at GMTV, and I did 7 years on there. My little lad had been born, and I just got offered the XFM breakfast in Manford, which I did for a year. And then my other little lad, my ex-wife was pregnant with my second child, and I decided then for that year just to do nothing. I did a year. I was fortunate. I was very fortunate to be in a nice position where I didn't have a mortgage or anything like that. I wasn't stupid with my money. I invested it wisely. I looked after my mum and dad, made sure they were house paid off in 11 June, and I looked after myself and bought a nice property, and it was all taken care of. So we were in a nice position, and so I made sure that year I spent with the kids, and I took them to school, and people were like, oh, you know, I did little bits and bobs, you know, I didn't do nothing, and it was just nice. It was really nice. And after the telly, it's funny really, because you go back to doing stand-up, and you'll do a gig like for, I don't know, 300-400 quid, and people are like, what are you doing here? I was like, well, I've still got 2 kids to feed, and I've got, you know, electricity and gas to pay. And I just liked being on the road. And I missed the camaraderie of, like, the Big Breakfast was one of the best gigs I've ever had. Nickelodeon Big Breakfast with Richard Judy. But I was fortunate to do other little bits. Like I did episode of Shameless, My Big Fat Diary. I did the Office Christmas Special, Ricky Gervais. So I was still in and about, and I was still getting offered stuff, but stuff that I didn't want to do. There was a lot of channels starting then, and they were doing these really bad programs, and I just thought, no. The biggest regret was I got offered the very first time a celebrity get me out of it, and I turned it down.
Really? Oh dear.
Because I didn't want to do a reality show, and I got offered that, and I got offered like Big Brother a couple of times, but I just thought, no, I just couldn't. The thought of being in a house with a load of these celebrities. I did the match on Sky1, which I loved. It was about football. It was a team of celebrities. We lived at Newcastle, and it was great, but everybody was sort of fighting for the airtime, you know, on the face. And I never did it to be famous, Alex. I did it because I really enjoyed what I did.
Yeah.
You know, I loved getting up in the morning when I did Nickelodeon, doing the breakfast show. I loved getting up, doing the Big Breakfast. I loved traveling the country. I loved meeting people, and you know, I had a great time at it.
Yeah. And what about Panto, Mike? Do you love that?
Oh, it's one of my favourite times of year. I love it. When I did my first Panto, like I said to you, with John Pertwee, and after that, I wasn't the lead comic. I was sort of like second or third comic, you know. And then there's that ladder to climb to get to become, you know. And then I did one Ilford, where I was the lead comic, and it was only like 400-seater venue, and I loved it. And then the second year they asked me back, and I did it again. And then this great director called John Spillers, who's no longer with us, is with your boss actually. He was just such a great mentor, so good as a director, and I did like 7 or 8 years with him. And then I just learned so much, you know. Every year we'd get together, and he'd go, right, what about this? And I go, what about this? And what about that? And he was just brilliant. And he'd say, no, you're doing that wrong. You need to hold that for a second, or you need to do that, you know, or he'd tell me off for messing about on stage. So yeah, Panto's great. And now I direct and I write, and I love that.
Yeah. I just think about what you said there about being with my boss, you know. So do you see your talent as a gift, Mike? You know, I'm chatting. A mate of mine is Jimmy Cricket, whose son's a priest. Then, you know, and I've had a few other. Tommy Cannon came on. He's a religious guy. Do you think what you have is a gift that's been given to you?
That's a brilliant question, Alex, and one that I can only answer when I see your boss and say, "Did you?" I just feel as if when I was being made, I felt like he put on the arms, he put the legs, and then it even came to the brains. He went, "Oh, we've ran out of really good, clever brains, but we've got what's this box? Funny bones. Give him some of them. Give him some of them." And I think, yeah, that's a brilliant question. I just, you know. I think, yeah, everything's a gift, isn't it? But it's a gift. I've been given it, but I've still had to work at it to make it a really good gift.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But I think about this. I mean, I'm not claiming to be funny, but I think some people just say I've got a funny face, but I think people like you, particularly through like COVID and stuff, you will have made a big difference to people's lives because you've got the gift of laughter in you, and I think the value of that has been undervalued. I think in the recovery from the pandemic, because oh my God, I've been through some tough times with work-related stuff, and you think, well, I'm so grateful that I've got a sense of humor because otherwise I could have just crumbled. And and I think that applies to people like you as well.
Yeah, during COVID, it was funny really because Joe Wicks was on the telly and doing all these videos, and I said to my partner Kate, I said, I'm going to do something, and I made literally 6, and they're on my Facebook. So I don't know if you be a member of Facebook, or I don't know if you are, but if you are, tag me in on it. And I made these short little videos, and they're no longer than a minute, Alex. And I put them on there, and it was about keeping fit, and it was a Mickey take of Joe Wicks. Well, I put them on there, and the amount of people that were like, "Oh my God," and I'd say they're like, "How many? When's the next one?" And I was like, "Tomorrow," And then when I stopped doing them, people were like, "You've got to do more. You've got to do more." And I just thought, no. There's that great saying than wanting more, and they were just completely. They were self-deprecating. They were all about they're keeping fit, and they were just And I didn't realize at the time I did them, And then my girlfriend the other day said to me, "Look," and they came up on her Facebook, and she went, "Look at that," and I watched them, and I made myself laugh. Like we were laughing, both laughing, watching us, and she said, "They're really funny. Why don't you do some more?" I was like, I don't know. I just didn't.
Yeah.
My little lad now, he's sort of taking the mantra of being funny now.
Well, yeah, I know. I've a daughter a bit like that actually. Just touching on I don't want to go delve into your private life, Mike, but I've I never expect it to happen, but I've been on radio and a bit of telly with a book I published last year, and it gives you quite a bit of attention, but my kids are just like, yeah, whatever, yeah, whatever, Dad. How are your kids about you being, kind of being in show business? Do they ever let you know how proud they are, or do they just like, Dad, just get on with it?
Only when it's funny really because they do a thing at school. You have to take a book in. So they each took my biography because I wrote my autobiography, and they took it in, and then their teachers are like, "Oh, hold on a minute, is that your dad?" And they're like, "Yeah." And then suddenly it's their friends' parents that know who I am, and they know, and they're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, is your dad Mike McClean?" And they're like, "Yeah." And to the point of, I took my lad for a casting yesterday for an advert, and it's funny because when we come back, he went, "Dad, I had your book in my bag," and the teacher was like, he went, "Is that your dad?" And I was like, he went, "Yeah." He was, "Is it really your dad?" He was like, "Yeah, look." And he's shown a picture of him in the book. And he was like, "No way, I used to watch him on the Big Brother." And they just laugh at it. They just go, "Yeah, all right,"
Yeah.
And like this Christmas, my little lad was in Panto with me. It was Peter Pan, and he played the part of John. And he loved the attention. He absolutely loved him. So when the Panto finishes, I do a stand-up gig on my own, And I said, "Do you want to do 5 minutes?" He said, "Yeah, can I?" So I wrote a little bit out for him, and he did it in front of 800 people. He did this set, and he did really well. But at the end, somebody came out, and we came out with people waiting for photographs, and not many as there was, but a few autographs and that. And then one of them went, "Oh, you were in the panto?" And he went, "Yeah." He said, "Can I have a photograph?" My little lad's just there going,
bro. It's nice, isn't it?
They know because of YouTube and people and things on Twitter and stuff like that. People go, they they don't really care. They just sort of go, "Oh, Dad was used to be famous in the day." And we were in yesterday, London. We went for this casting, and we went down Rathbone Place where the old Nickelodeon studios would be. And I said to him, "Come on, I'll show you it." And I said, "Look, this is where I used to get my coffee in the morning." And right there was where the studios. And he was like, "Can we go home now?"
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've got quite a good list of folk that have been on the Godcast, but the kids just like whatever, and it's like, well, fair enough. So now, listen, we haven't got long, but I want to touch on football because I've got my Burnley shirt under here. I'm actually got my Burnley shirt under there. And we've got your next manager, haven't we? And I suppose the question I've got in terms of City, are they going to do the treble?
I think you'd be probably in a better position to answer that than me, Alex. I'd like to say yes. I think it's a very difficult thing to do. I made up for you, by the way. I think we went to Burnley because Nick Pope was your goalkeeper, who is married to Kevin Horlock, who's a good mate of mine who used to play for City.
Right, okay.
So when Cooper's birthday was, he sorted out some tickets to go and watch Burnley and Man City. So we went to Burnley. We had a lovely time. I hope they do. I'd love them to do, Alex. I really, really would. I was saying to my eldest lad, they're both good. My eldest lad's they've both been at Ipswich Academy, and he's at Billericay now, the academy there. And we talk football all the time, and we were saying, London is saying this morning about how he hoped that Spurs don't. I hope Vincent Kompany doesn't go to Spurs because he's done so well with Burnley. I think the next challenge for him is to go into the Premiership with Burnley and see how he can do, And I think he'll do. I think he'll do well. I'd love City to do the treble. I'd love City to do the treble. Yeah, definitely. If they're going to do it, I don't know. We're on the way because they've just beat Bayern Munich the other night. Then we've got over one wall. If we beat them at their place, we're over one wall. Then we've got another wall to climb, and that's Real Madrid. So that's not going to be easy.
I went to the Etihad for the cup match where we did all right for 30 minutes and then got murdered. I took a lot of comfort that a lot of teams have been murdered since then as well, because I thought, oh my God, are we ready? And
I think you are.
I think we are ready. I think Vincent will stay as well because he's got total control at the club, and he's got young lads, all under 21 internationals. And there's an sense of excitement which you haven't got at Spurs at the minute, and I hope he stays with us. And he's in the north as well, isn't he? I think he's lives around Manchester. So
I was at that game, and I thought for the first 30 minutes you played some great football. Really, he'd set you up. It's just that little bit of skill and that little bit of And I'm sure if he gets a little bit of money and recruits right, I think you'll be all right next year.
Yeah, it's been great meeting you, Mike, and chatting to you. What's the year old? Have you got a lot on?
I've two things I've written. I've just written a series called Grassroots with Jerry Kay now, and it's about a fictitious football club. And the manager's got done under a bung scandal, and he gets in touch with an agent who wants Jack Maggiera from Liga Walsall as a genuine manager, but the agent mishears him and gets him Jack Marshall from Walsall. So he has to go into this club, a bit like Man City, and manage it. So we've got a big name that is reading it, and we can't say it, unfortunately, because not yes or no, but he's a big name. He's reading it and he likes it. So if that gets off the ground, then we'll be very, very happy. And the other one I've written is a series called Cooper, after my lad, who doesn't like going to school. And his granddad passes away. He's Spanish, based on my family. And he gives him a tin with 3 marbles and their wishes. So he makes the first 2 wishes, and the third wish, because his dad says, oh, it's the greatest time of your life. And he wishes that his dad could go back in time and go to school. So his dad wakes up in the body of a 14-year-old boy and goes to school, but then realizes why his son doesn't like school, and it all folds out. So I've just written those 2, and I just like the process of writing. I've got a nice house, and I'll still get up and I'll go to like a Starbucks not far from me, and I'll sit and I'll write. And when I've hit a wall, I'll get up and go back home. And when I've just come back from being on a cruise ship doing a gig, and I just took the laptop, and I'm very, very lucky, Alex. I'm very lucky that I was in the middle of the Pacific having breakfast, just typing away, and it was lovely. So
yeah. Well, I get that. I'm throwing around ideas in my head about a next book, and it's a great process, isn't it? And we'll see where it goes. But
good luck with it.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, well, the first one's done all right, so I'm really pleased, and I love writing, so we'll see what happens. But Mike, I've loved chatting to you. I love talking comedy. It's my real passion. And do I want Man City to win the treble? I suppose I do. Yeah, but although I do think it'd be good for Arsenal because it would be good for the Premier League. But I look forward to coming to the Etihad next year and getting another stuff in, because That seems to be the general theme when you play us, but
You never know, Alex. You never know. As your man says, God works in mysterious ways.
he does indeed. He does indeed. Mike, thanks so much, and God bless you, and thanks for coming on.
Pleasure, Alex. Have a lovely day, my friend.